Hi friends, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Diane and together we are going to be practicing Pointillist landscape in oil pastel. So grab your materials and let's get started. Alrighty, so before we get started with the actual drawing, I'm just going to walk you quickly through the materials you're going to need. We're going to be copying a very small section, just this little piece right here of this painting. Was done by Henri Edmond Cross. It's entitled The Pine Wood, in parentheses, Provence, and it's a detail from that painting, painted in 1906, oil on canvas. So you'll want to internet search this and print out a copy for yourself so that you can copy right along with me. Or some people might choose to just copy it right off your phone. That's fine, or a tablet, that's fine too. It's easier to match colors if you have a hard copy printout though, because you're working ink to ink or hard copy materials to hard copy materials rather than digital. But that's your call. We are going to do just a small section because the whole point of this class is just to introduce you to how to use oil pastels to work in pointillism, which is a style of impressionist painting that involves millions of little dots to create a scene. So we're going to start by just drawing this section of tree. So we're really just doing like this small section of trunk. So you can just draw kind of a slanted line and another slanted line, and then a couple little branches sticking off of it. So there's one curved one. That's not really that close, but kind of. And then further down the trunk, there's one that kind of sticks out, curves up a little bit, and then right below it, do a third one there. So something like that. Does not have to be exact. This is mostly for the, actually entirely for the purpose of learning how to do pointillism. So sorry, I kind of got sidetracked in talking about the materials. You're also going to need a pencil and an eraser for exactly that reason, a piece of paper suitable for oil pastels, and you need your oil pastel kit. This is mine. It's very old, but it still works beautifully, which is why I still use it. I think it might even be older than I am. It was a hand-me-down. But any oil pastel set you have should be fine. I would just recommend having like a set of 24 minimum. You could do it with a set of 12 also, but you'll have to do a lot more color mixing. Whereas if you have a couple different pinks, for example, that's great for this particular image. So the larger your kit, the better. Anyway, we're going to start with white as a base because the sky is very light. So if you've used your chalk oil pastels at all, as I have, they're probably a little dirty from the last time you used them. So just rub the dirty spot off on a piece of scratch paper or the side of your paper where you're not going to use to get it pretty clean. And then we're just going to color white over the entire thing, but not hard. And you see it's kind of smearing my pencil lines. That's fine. We're going to cover those up anyway. It's really almost impossible to show you how hard I'm pressing because I'm coloring white on white, but I'm pressing very, very lightly. And I'm coloring even over the tree trunk because the tree trunk is also pretty bright, and I'm coloring with light pressure. So I wouldn't want to put a very dense coat of white over the tree trunk because then the darks would fight the white, but a light coat will never hurt. And the reason we're putting a light coat down is as a base so that all these lovely yellows and pinks in the sky pop through and the lovely lights in the tree can pop through a little easier. So I'm going a little heavier in the sky than I did on the tree trunk for the reason that the sky is lighter. And actually, let me, oh no, sorry, I'll do that later. So now we're going to start in the sky with the very lightest color. So I'm going to start with pink or yellow. Actually, either one is fine because they're both light. And keep in mind, this is oil paint. So it was easier or more accessible to do actual kind of daubs of paint, whereas oil pastels are going to be a little bit more liney. So don't worry if like you're doing this and it seems like lines. It's supposed to seem like lines because you can't really avoid that with sorry, oil pastel. But we're just going to go in and do a bunch of dots. Now, the way to combat the line effect is make sure you're going in multiple directions. So you don't want to just do this because see, they're all going in the same direction and then it gives the impression of a horizontal sky. This sky is not horizontal, it's very, very malleable. So we want to mimic that. So I'm going in many different directions, kind of coming at it from the top, and I'm just putting dots approximately where I see them. So the pink is more concentrated right around the branches. It kind of gives the branches a feeling of life or glowing without even thinking about it. And we're going to do that all over, or as high as you want to go, really. Not a whole lot between these two branches, but definitely some. And the other thing we can use to combat the direction of the pink, I'll show you in a minute, we're going to blend more with the white, and you're going to love that. It's a beautiful effect because it will break up the sort of dottiness of this, even though we are obviously going for a dotty texture, but we don't want it to look like a rash. It should look more elegant, I guess, than that. I'm going to put some over here into the whites that I colored earlier. Sorry for the very loud oil pastel sound, but I'm sure you're making the same sound. So together we're quite the symphony. So yeah, I went very light over here, a little more dense there. So we're not going to blend every color as we go, but I just want to show you what this is going to do. So take your white again, make sure it's clean, and go in and color in circles over what you've just done in the pink. And what'll happen is they'll soften a little bit. It's not going to get rid of your texture. It's just going to lend itself to a softer texture-y effect. And now I am pressing very hard because I'm trying to blend. Sometimes oil pastels snap in half, which is why I only have half of a white here. That's fine. You can still use one half or the other. And you can blend endlessly. So say that feels like not enough pink now, so I'm going to go do more pink and then blend again. But you do want to not blend after every single color because the oil pastel will kind of build up and get waxy and almost resist new colors. So again, I just showed you that so you could see what it would do early on. But now we're going to add some yellow. Oops, I forgot to see if it was clean. Fortunately, clean enough. And the yellow is so light and lovely. Wow, that adds a lot of life that you really can't see the shape of each dab or dot. All you're seeing is the effect of the color. So we don't really need to blend this one. And we don't need to put a lot in to have a nice effect either. So that's good for the sky for now. We may go back and do more. Let's get into the tree. So I'm going to use, let's see, this same color, yeah, for some pink, but this time I'm going to do slightly more long strokes because they're sort of going vertically up and down the tree, even though they're still dots really, but they're more like ovally shaped dots instead of circles. And this part is the brightest. So I'm just focusing my pink right there. I'll put a little bit further down the trunk just to give it a presence, and a little bit up into the purple part. And then I'm going to go in with the yellow right away and really kind of color that because, as I mentioned earlier with the sky, you can't really see the dots anyway. We just want to get a presence of the yellow in there. And then we'll just go into darker and darker colors. So I'm going to grab a darker pink now, which is kind of the dominant color on this tree trunk, and put in a whole bunch of lines. Not worried about filling in all the white yet. We will do that, but for right now, just get a large presence of dark pink underneath that light pink section and a few dabs into the light pink section, just so they marry. A little bit above it too, kind of going into the purple. Something like that. Seeing a little bit out here. Oh, actually, I should have done, I wasn't paying attention, but I should have done some pink out here for the leaves, just as a base. So these clumps of leaves we're gonna do also to some degree. We're not gonna go all the way out, but just so you can experience putting in some leaves. Oh, and one line, I forgot to have you draw the water. The, so you could just put that in now or not. You don't even have to draw it. You could just eyeball it. The horizon line for the water. So for that, we're going to color white again as a base, just a light coat. And that I'm going very horizontal because the water is going very horizontal. And I'm just going to use some dark blues and purples. But since I put white down, they go on pretty lightly, and especially since I'm not pressing hard. And just like the tree, I'm making slightly more liney than dotty effects because it really does lend itself to looking like an ocean. And I'm going to put some purple over the top because I don't happen to have a color that really matches that. I don't have a blue purple, I just have a blue and a purple. But if you have a blue purple, you can use it. And then I'm going to go back down there, and I'm probably even done with the ocean, so I'm just going to blend. But instead of doing circles like I did in the sky, I'm going to go side to side because the ocean goes side to side. And now I'm pressing pretty hard. And that has a nice effect of lightening the color as well. So anyway, I went off on a little tangent there, but let's come back and do some darker red in the tree, kind of mixed in with those pinks. Get right out to your pencil line. Again, not being too concerned if you don't cover up all the white, but we're increasing the amount of white coverage. And I'm going to get some of those beautiful dark reds out here on the leaves as well. Kind of on the periphery of the bunch, because as we move into the center, it's going to get more and more purple. At least for the top one. This bottom one seems to have a little more red mixed into the whole thing, although there's still not a lot of it. Something like that. And now the one naked spot we have are the branches, so let's just fill those in. We'll start with our kind of blue color again, just sort of dabbing that in. And this is way too blue. We are going to put some purple over it, but it's a bluish purple, so I wanted to start with one and then put the other in. It doesn't really matter which one you start with. And I'm just doing little liney strokes in the direction of the branch. Oh, and then I can also do some up here, quite a bit actually, because the top of this tree is quite dark, just under the canopy of leaves there. So lots of blue right there. And then I'll go back with the purple and give it a little bit of a purple lift, a presence. That shadow kind of comes all the way down to this branch and then lives over it. So if you have any sky showing, now would be a good time to cover it up on these branches. If it feels like there's too much sky showing, so your branch is going to get too thick, then just go back and put some more sky in to close in on the branch before you continue with this. But otherwise, you want to really get rid of any paper that's showing on the branches at this point, because these branches are so skinny that it's pretty easy to cover up all the paper. And notice I'm being pretty irregular with my edges. That's a good thing. We don't want them to be perfectly straight or measured at all. They are supposed to kind of have bumps and lumps sticking out from them. And since I have the purple in my hand, I'm going to add whatever I need to the trees for that. A little bit in there, yep, here, for sure in the center. And then I'll go back to the blue and do the same thing in the trees. And that's not going on very dark. But we are going to add some dark green to this also, so that should take care of the lack of darkness. Right now we're just focusing more on the actual color. I'm also noticing just this branch, the blue and purple seem to sort of leak into the trunk, so I'm just going to press really hard right there and get a very firm presence of blue, and then put dots coming out from that splotch into the rest of the trunk. I'm going to add a little bit more up here too for the same reason. It'll just help the branch seem to kind of really be attached to the trunk. This one, on the other hand, goes right behind it, so I don't really need to do that there. Okay, so let's reevaluate. What do we need to add? So to the branch, it looks like there's a hint of orange in it. So I'm going to take this light orange, or sorry, to the trunk, and start to fill in more of the white spaces. And it's not going to be that obvious because the pinks and reds are so dominant, which is what I wanted. So we're just going to use this kind of as a way to add the orange presence, but also to blend the yellow and into the red and cover up remaining paper. And if it feels like there's too much paper remaining, you can always go back with more pink or orange or whatever you would like. So now we've got all the really pinky, orange, purple colors in there. Let's go into the greens, which should be the last thing you do. So if you want to add any more pinks or oranges or yellows, blues or purples, do that now. Not that you can't later, it's just easier to do it now. I'm going to add some more pink outside of my leaf clumps because this light pink is what makes the leaf clumps look kind of natural, like they're fading into the sky a little bit. They have a relationship with the sky. So that should be the main color on the outside of these clumps. And I feel like when I put all the other colors in, it sort of took away the pinks. So I'm just putting some more of that back in. And you probably also noticed, but I'm not paying too much attention to the shape of these clumps. I'm just putting in massive clumps of tree leaves. So now we're going to go in with the dark green and start filling that in. So on the end of this leaf clump, I'm going to start dabbing it. And you can see it's not showing up very well. That's because of what I talked about earlier, where the oil pastel builds and builds, and if you try to put other colors on top, it just stops showing up. So you can take your fingernail, if you have fingernails, or you can take like a penny or a plastic knife or something and just sort of scrape the old pastel away and then lay your new color down and see how much darker that shows up, because now the oil, the wax of the color has something to grab onto the paper versus trying to grab onto layers and layers of caked on oil. And anything that's stuck on your fingernail, just wipe on your scratch paper. So a little bit of green there. Not a whole lot of green here, but I'm going to scrape some there and kind of wiggle my dark green in. I'm pressing hard to get it to really show. And just a teeny bit of it up here, really. And then we'll go back very conservatively with some black, even though I really don't like using black in paintings or drawings because I feel like it kind of has a deadening effect. It does have a time and place when you just can't get things dark enough by other means. So that looks like it's pretty good for the green. And now I'm going to go in with the black. So just pressing hard to get it to show, but not putting really thick strokes in, just kind of seeing what it looks like. And that worked really nicely at the top. That sort of darkened everything without making it look dead. And then I'm going to do some in the green, and that's not showing up. So I'm going to scrape again and then put some in. And I'm actually coloring now because it really wasn't showing up. But just a little splotch, and then I'm putting dots of black coming out from it so that it doesn't look like just a black splotch, hopefully. Let's try this one. That's going on a little bit better, and we don't want a whole lot. I just want to darken the very kind of heart of the green a little bit. It'll make it look more three-dimensional. So I'm still seeing some white in the trunk, so I'm going to go back with my lightest color and just blend those in, because this won't show at all. It's just going to serve to kind of get rid of those little peekaboos. And you can kind of look around and just ask yourself if there's anything else you want to do. You can certainly continue the picture too. This is just meant to kind of show you a method for approaching this in oil pastel, doing some pointillism. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for visiting me today and doing this project with me. And if you enjoyed it, I hope you will subscribe to the channel because there's a lot more to come. And also, if you have a second, please rate and review the class. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.